Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have on the Goldstein on Gelt show, J D Roth, he's an accidental personal finance expert. He started a website called GetRichSlowly.org. He ultimately sold it and then wrote a book called Your Money, The Missing Manual. JD, real pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Doug. Great to be here.
Why did people need a missing manual? What was missing?
Well, there are a lot of things in life that we don't have manuals to. We grow up, we get out of school, we get married, and we head off into the great unknown, and nobody tells us how to manage money and do lots of other things. Mm-hmm. And in this case, my publisher produces a series of books they call the Missing Manual. Usually they're about like Photoshop or Microsoft Word, but they thought, wow, it'd be great to have one on personal finance. And when they approached me about this idea, I thought, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. It's a chance to write a book for people like my former self or my current brother and his current state in life. A book for people who actually do need detailed instructions about how to manage money.
Okay, so when you mentioned your former self, describe that guy to me and tell me where you are today.
All right. The old JD spent indiscriminately on whatever he wanted. He had no goals. He had no direction. And so when I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I just bought whatever I felt like. And I ended up deep in debt because of it, because I couldn't fund everything that I wanted to buy. Now, today, I'm very different. I gradually learned about a decade ago. I learned some of these time-tested money skills that, this knowledge has been around for a long, long time, and some people get it, but I was one of the people who didn't. And so I learned about a decade ago about how to get out of debt and how to save and how to build a positive cash flow so that I could pursue my goals, financial and otherwise. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, I'm very goal-directed. I like to travel, for instance, and in order to travel to Peru or Ecuador, I've got to set aside money to do that. And I use these goals to keep me focused so that I do the right things with money.
Let's talk a little bit about the goal thing, because I think that guys like you and me talk about it all the time because this is kind of the business we're in. My day job is that I'm a financial advisor, and I help people to develop long-term financial plans and retirement plans. So I'll often use the language of goals, but frankly, I find that when I introduce the concept to clients, they don't take it seriously.
Right.
And B, they don't really get it. How do you show someone or teach someone that, you really have to have a goal, because otherwise you're not heading anywhere?
Well, that can be tough, and I don't know if there's any one right way to do it. I know that when I speak with people, I conduct seminars or meet with people one-on-one. When I talk to people about setting goals and deciding what's important in their life, I really focus on what makes them happy. Because to me, when I'm writing about personal finance and saving and investing and that kind of thing, I'm not really talking about money. I'm actually talking about happiness, because I think that's what we all really want, is to be happy and content.
You're not saying that money buys happiness, are you?
Well, I don't know that money buys happiness, but it's certainly a tool that can be very useful for pursuing happiness.
As long as you know which stores to shop in.
Well, it allows you to do things that you otherwise might not be able to do.
Right.
And so I think it's important to help people dial in on what exactly it is that brings them fulfillment, whether that's time spent with family, whether that's travel, or maybe it really is owning a fast car and being able to drive it around. For most people, that's not true. So figuring out what it is that brings you fulfillment and figuring out how you can better structure your personal finances to achieve these things, I think is very important.
We're talking to J D Roth, who is a teacher about how to deal with money, and he starts at the real basics. He wrote a book called Your Money, The Missing Manual. He also writes Your Money column for Entrepreneur Magazine. And JD, your latest project is the Get Rich Slowly course. Do you have to get rich only slowly, or is there something more to it?
Well, you can't. Some people can get rich quickly. There's no doubt, and I know several people who've managed to happen upon that kind of lucky circumstance. However, there's no reliable way to get rich quickly. On the other hand, what I've learned over time is there are reliable ways to get rich slowly. And those are these time-tested things that you hear all the time about reducing your spending, increasing your income, saving more than you earn. I mean, saving more than you spend, earning more than you spend. Yeah. And so, yeah, you can get rich slowly. Almost anyone can do it. You've just got to be willing to take the time to do the work and create a lifestyle that is congruent with your values, I think.
So that wisdom which you're describing, with all due respect to all of the work you've done, was the type of thing my grandmother told me.
Right.
What's different about what you're saying, or why is it that the Get Rich Slowly course would really help someone, other than talking to his grandmother?
The Get Rich Slowly course, it's designed to help people reframe their state of mind, I guess. I think we all understand that businesses need to make money in order to survive. They need to make a profit. But what a lot of people don't realize, what they don't recognize, is that's also true in your personal life. In order for you to meet your goals for yourself and for your family, it's also important for you to make a profit, your family to make a profit. And so what I want to encourage people to do is act as the chief financial officer of their own lives. So in the Get Rich Slowly course, the centerpiece of the course is actually a guide to how to become the chief financial officer of your own life. I call it Be Your Own CFO. Mm-hmm. And my goal there is to have people, instead of being reactive and kind of passive and allowing life to direct them, I want people to take a much more proactive stance and take charge of their personal finances and say, no, nobody cares more about my money than I do, and I'm going to make the decisions necessary to achieve the goals that I have.
That is so critical, because all too often people feel either entitled to get money, whether it's from their parents when they're young or from the government as they get older, and they don't really have a sense of responsibility about what they should be doing. If you were advising, let's say, a middle-aged couple, right? In other words, they've been working for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're a little nervous because they're looking around the corner at retirement, and they say, well, the stock market is insane and interest rates are so low. Why even bother saving? What can I do to make sure I'll be safe in the future? What would be the first step you would tell them to follow?
The first step is to boost your savings rate. When you're relying on the interest rate for a savings account or the returns from the stock market, you're still placing your trust or your faith outside yourself. And I want people to take more responsibility. The number one thing that you can do to increase how much money you have in retirement or for any goal is to save more. That's the number one contributing factor to how much you have for the goals that you're trying to achieve. So what I would advise somebody in that situation is find ways to reduce your spending and or increase your income, so you're creating a greater gap, a greater savings rate. And a lot of times this stuff sounds impossible, but it's not. What I encourage people to do is focus on what I call the big wins. And these are the things that take the most out of your budget. And for most people, that's housing and transportation. If you can reduce your housing costs, if you can reduce your transportation costs, you can create a large savings rate.
Wait, those are the biggest expenses you see people overspending on?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially here in the United States, people end up buying. We're told you should buy as much house as you can afford. And that's just not true. At least I believe it's not true. I believe you should buy as little house as you need. And by doing that, you're able to create a buffer that protects you from all the slings and arrows of life, and also allows you to save for the things that you want to accomplish later.
Well, don't people tell you that, what am I constantly saving for the future? I'd like to live in a nice house, and I'd like to drive a nice car.
Oh, of course.
But you can't have your cake. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Well, yeah. And the thing is, a lot of people, for whatever reason, they view saving as deprivation. They view it as like, I don't get to spend my money. But I think that's the wrong way to look at it. Saving isn't really deprivation. It's just deferred spending. you're still that money is still spent, but it's spent on your future. And so you have the choice. You can spend on your present, or you can spend on your future, or if you're in debt, you're spending on your past. I think it's important to find a balance. And so I encourage people to save as much as possible for the future, because at least the people I know don't save enough.
Yeah, I think that is a real problem, and probably the reason why the average American, even the average retired American, has only a few $1,000s in savings. Some people have much more, but most people just don't. JD, this has really been fascinating, and you've taught us a lot of great ideas, but unfortunately, we are just about out of time. So tell me, in the last few seconds, how can people follow you and follow your work?
Well, right now I'm writing about happiness and personal development at jdroth.com, and the Get Rich Slowly course can be found at moneytoolbox.com.
All right. J D Roth, we will put those links to those at the show notes of today's Goldstein on Gelt show at goldsteinongelt.com. And I'd like to thank you very, very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.